Update. I, 50 female, told my daughter, 24 female, that I won't attend her wedding if her biological father is there. But now she says I'm being stuck in the past. Original post. For some context, about 24 years ago, I was violated by a close friend of mine and got pregnant by the encounter. I was inconsolable for months after the event. To make matters worse, I found out that I was pregnant at about 20 weeks, and where I lived at a time it was illegal to terminate after the first trimester. My husband had really been my rock and my support during that time, and I do not know how it would have ended up if not for him. He said that I could put it up for adoption, or I could keep the child and he would raise it like our other children. I decided to not give it up for adoption, but raising the kid was hard. I'm half Polish and half German, and he is half German and half Russian. We both have pale skin, light hair, and blue eyes, as well as being fairly tall. I'm about 178 centimeters or around 5'10", and he's 191 centimeters or about 6'3". However, our daughter Luna is about 160 centimeters or 5'3", has dark hair and a brown complexion like her biological father. I often heard snide remarks about me being an unfaithful wife because it was obvious that she was not my husband's child. It was especially hard for me when Luna was young, because she looked so much like her dad. My husband took care of my daughter most of the time, since I had bad flashbacks whenever I saw her face from when I was violated. As she grew up, it died down a bit, but I would still get these horrible panic attacks when I saw her wearing boys' clothes and short hair. Since I was prone to having panic attacks, Luna ended up being closer to my husband than she was to me. Also, she often ended up getting a little more than her siblings from my husband as some sort of compensation because of me. We never told her that she was the product of a non-consensual act, because I was too ashamed and my husband did not want her feeling different from her siblings. I often told her that me and her biological father got into an altercation but never spoke to one another ever again. About 2 years ago, she got one of those DNA test items and found out she had a relative in the system. Said relative got Luna in touch with her bi-dad, and they started talking despite my protests. He apparently wanted to speak to me about something he wanted to tell me, so Luna attempted to persuade me to speak with him. I made her aware that me and her father shouldn't ever be in the same room together. Now, Luna's getting married to a lovely young man. Some of the COVID restrictions have been lifted, so she's able to have a decent-sized wedding. The original plan was to have my husband walk her down the aisle, but he had gotten into a bad accident, leaving him in a wheelchair until his legs are strong enough to support his weight again. However, this is not her idea of a picture-perfect wedding day, so she invited her biological father to have the honor of being the bride's father. Her wedding invitation not only invited my offender, but she totally disrespected the man who raised her. Although I or a bridesmaid could have pushed him down the aisle, she thinks it would not fit the vibe of the wedding. My husband looked so shocked and upset that she would even think of this, but I was furious. I have a visceral hate for that man, and I let her know that I would not be anywhere near him. She told me that this is what she wants and there's no changing her mind, so I told her I will not be attending if he's there. She got upset and told me that I shouldn't hang on to the past, but I laid it into her that she doesn't know what happened between me and her biological father, so she shouldn't stick her nose where it doesn't belong. Though I feel terrible about what I said and how I said it, and I can't be blamed for her being born or not knowing what happened since I never told her, I still feel as though my wishes should be respected if I say I don't want to be in the same room as someone. I'm now okay with her contacting her father. I just do not want anything to do with him. Also, it's rude to replace your father with another man who you've barely known for 2 years because of something he couldn't control. Can anyone offer me a perspective that I am not catching? Has anyone ever dealt with this, and if so, how? Now for the top advice before reading the update. You need to tell her how she was conceived. You did her a disservice by concealing that from her and allowing her to have a relationship with an offender. Now that offender has obviously fed her a narrative that paints him in a convenient light. Who knows what else that man could do? Tell her immediately. She should know that a picture-perfect wedding she wants will forever be marred by having him there. If after telling her she sticks to her guns, let her know you won't have a relationship with someone who so easily sides with someone like that. I was conceived from my father violating my mother. I would never expect my mother to see my father at all. You need to tell her. It's her business as well as yours. Also, I didn't discover the truth of my conception until I was roughly your daughter's age. It took some processing, but I've moved on. It's part of my story as it's part of your daughter's. It's time to stop lying to her. Frankly, you should have put her up for adoption the second you started having panic attacks around her. She's a grown 24-year adult. There is no reason for her to not know her bi-dad violated you. And now for the update. Before I get started on the updates, I have a few things I want to address. A lot of people have questioned me on why I did not tell my daughter that she was a product of a crime. The only answer is that I was ashamed of myself. For some context, before I got married to my husband, I actually was very close friends with my offender. We grew up together in a small community, and our families were close. Our parents even wanted us to be together. He was always interested in me, but I didn't give him a chance until university. I broke it off with him and started dating my husband, but I never cut him off because we were very close. He invited me over to drink. This was normal for us. And when I started getting a bit tipsy, he violated me. I was very traumatized by the situation and tried to get him jailed, but I couldn't. He had a very good reputation, so everyone believed him, even my own mother, when he said I willingly came over and did it with him. I eventually stopped pursuing the case because of the social pressure, which only got worse when I found out I was pregnant. I eventually left the place with my husband and kids to live somewhere else. After I gave birth, my husband suggested therapy, but I was scared of being judged again, so I decided to bury it and try to forget about it. I just realized now that it was the worst way to go about this, but it's the only way I knew how to, honestly. Now on to the update. After reading all the advice I'd gotten, I decided that I should stop running away and tell her everything. I called her to come over and she did. I first apologized for yelling at her for her suggestion, because in her mind it was an innocent suggestion. I told her that I wasn't angry at her, but at how fast she was willing to replace her father because he was in a wheelchair, and that anger was compounded because she brought up her genetic father. I apologized again for acting childish and not like an adult. She asked me why I'm so against her genetic father being in the same vicinity as I am, and I just told her everything, from our initial friendship to her forced conception. She didn't believe me, like some of you predicted, but I can get a copy of the records of the court case and offered them to her if she needed a look. She looked stunned, like she wanted to believe me, but couldn't. I apologized for keeping all this from her because I didn't know how to bring it up. She told me she didn't believe me and would confirm with her genetic father, so I told her to take the time she needed to process all this. Later that day, she came again, crying and apologizing for not believing me. I held her and cried and apologized too. It was kind of therapeutic. We had a long chat and I did feel closer to her. When we were done, she said she wanted to take me out to a surprise to help me feel better in a couple of days, which I happily agreed to. I went to see her yesterday in this little restaurant with a patio that had a private pay-for-use area for a maximum of 4 people due to COVID. She ran up to me and gave me a hug. Then she led me to the patio, where her biological father stood. She told me he was here to apologize and start my healing journey. I just wanted to leave, but he grabbed my hand, and all those memories I tried to repress just came back out. I started having a panic attack and lost my balance, to which she tried to help me keep my balance, which worsened everything. I honestly don't remember how I left, but I ended up in my car just sobbing. I called my elder son to pick me up because I was not fit to drive at that moment. Today my daughter called me upset that I ruined her surprise, but I was extremely upset with her. I asked her why she did that when she knows everything that happened between me and him, and she tried to use the excuse of my healing journey, but I wasn't having it. She admitted that she wanted me to get used to him because he's gonna be walking her down the aisle along with my husband and we'll be doing the daddy-daughter dance. I told her that while I loved her and respect her decision to be with him, I am not willing to be anywhere he is. She started complaining about how she wants all her family to be there, and I'm still not forgiving, but I hung up the phone. My husband is aware of everything and stands by me if not going to her wedding, but I don't want this. If my other children were to know, they would stand by me and tell the rest of their extended family, which is going to lead to my daughter getting disowned by the family. But there is no need to give me advice on this because I will be seeking professional aid. Anyways, one good thing to come out of this is that I'm finally confident enough to seek therapy. Thank you for listening to my venting and for commenting on my last post. Happy holidays! I hope you enjoy it with those who love you. WTF. Honestly, same. Daughter checked all requisites of villainy. Never met the daughter, but her entire existence infuriates me right now. It baffles me that in some twisted way, she excused, condoned, accepted, doesn't care that the assault happened. Can't even find a right word, but it was selfish of her to ambush you with that horrible person. Sending virtual boosters and support to OP after being hit with a hurricane of an event. Seriously, what a self-centered little see you next Tuesday. What a horrible daughter. No offense. But at least you have other people in your life with warmer hearts. I think the same. Only a little piece of trash can think that is a good idea to forgive an offender for her selfish wants. I know that she's her daughter, but I'll cut her off if it was me. This is a lot for you to deal with. Virtual hugs from an internet stranger. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of this. My heart goes out to you. Question, if I may, is your husband going to the wedding? No, my husband is very angry with her at the moment. Despite his injury, he's been constantly checking on me to see if I'm alright. I honestly love that man, and I seriously doubt that I would be alive if it weren't for him. I may be way off here, but your kids and the rest of your family deserve to know the truth. She deserves to be disowned. You have suffered enough for her. If I was your child or a family member, I would want the chance to do right by you. Also, she may tell them regardless. It's best they hear it from you before she spins the story to make her seem like the reasonable one. Now for the last story. Update. My daughter ran away at 17 to be with her husband. She is now 22, he is 34, and I have recently found out she is pregnant and would like to try again to reach out to her. I'm not sure which way would be best. Original post. Hello, I'm 53 years old and I have a 22-year-old daughter. My husband and I have not spoken to her for 5 years when she left home. She ran away at 17, and when we located her, she was already 18 and living with her husband, who is 34 years old now. My husband completely cut her off, but I tried to maintain contact with her, but never got any responses from her. Eventually, she changed her phone number, and I didn't even have any way to contact her. Recently, my daughter has reached out to one of her cousins, and that cousin has told me that my daughter is expecting her first child. I would like to reach out to my daughter and repair our relationship. I would like to help her with her pregnancy and be part of my grandchild's life. I'm looking for advice on what you think the best way to contact her would be. My options are 1. Send her a message over social media. This seems very impersonal to me. 2. Send her a text message. I worry this will upset her because it would mean her cousin giving me her phone number. I don't want my daughter to see that as a betrayal of her trust. 3. Write her a letter. This seems like the most personal way for me without invading her privacy. Worst comes to worst, her cousin can take a picture of the letter and send it to her. I would just like others' opinions on what they think I should do. Thank you very much. I'm going to add in some pertinent background information. When my daughter ran away, my husband and I did not know she had left willingly to be with her boyfriend, the man she's married to now. We did not even know she was dating someone. We thought she was kidnapped. There was a search for her, and my husband and I exhausted our savings and retirement to search for her once the police stopped. Months later, we found out she was alive and well, and had gotten married to that man once she turned 18. My husband has not talked to her since, though I have reached out many times. Our relationship was very good until she turned 16, when I later found out she began dating her now husband. Around that time, she began sneaking out, skipping school, and lying, which we know was probably due to the influence of her husband. I do not know much about their relationship dynamic, other than she apparently admitted to my niece he's controlling. Now for the top advice before reading the update. A letter is least intrusive and most respectful. Other people have made excellent comments here about ways to contact her. I only wanted to add that your daughter has been groomed and is very probably in an awful relationship. What you're going to want to do, because you're loving parents, is get her the hell away from this man. But you can't. She will have to take the step on her own once she's ready. And it's a lot easier to do that when she knows she has backup and place to go. So if you really want to help her, make sure you don't alienate her and you stay in her life. Don't talk bad about her husband. Don't talk good about him either. Better to not mention him at all. If she does talk to you about him, try to let her come to the realization on her own by biting your tongue and doing nothing but asking questions. Are you okay with that? How does that make you feel? Do you think that's what love is? Stuff like that. Remember, her husband is probably looking for a way to isolate her further. You're gonna have to rebuild that bond again. Do not be judgmental about their marriage/relationship at all, especially in the beginning. Edit/update. I asked my niece to reach out to my daughter about the two of us talking. My niece told me she said yes and gave me her phone number. She said to call her tomorrow after 9 o'clock. I'm very excited about this new development. And now for the update. I'm writing this quickly while I have a chance. I received a lot of wonderful advice. And for all of you who are well-meaning, I thank you very much. After I wrote my last post, I reached out to my niece to ask her if my daughter wanted to be contacted by me or not. My daughter says yes, and said for me to call her after 9 o'clock the next day, but made sure to say not to call her beforehand. At 9:15 the next day, I called my daughter. She immediately told me she needed money at a place to stay. She told me her husband had begun to get physical with her, and she was afraid for herself and her child. In summary, over the last few days, we have found out that my daughter's husband was emotionally and financially controlling her over the years. But my daughter was fooled by him enough that she thought it was okay or normal. She said that he would get mad at her if she talked about reaching out to her father and I, and would tell her that we were going to try to break them apart. It wasn't until she became pregnant and got worse that she realized she needed to get out. My husband and I immediately flew to go get her and bring her home. We have already talked to law enforcement in both her town and ours. Thank you, everyone. I know this is written rather hastily, so if there are any questions, I will answer them. I wish you and your daughter all the best. I'm glad she felt able to ask for help and leave her abuser. That takes great courage, especially after being groomed so young. Thank you very much. She was very brave, and we are very proud of her. What a great response from you. I am sure this was not what you expected and you went into protective mode immediately. My one piece of advice is, understand she may not open up about everything immediately. Let her know that's okay and your home is a safe space. And when she's ready, you're there for her if she wants to share. She would fare well with therapy, but what a damn champ for asking for help. She's a strong one. You raised her right. Congrats on being a grandparent, though on quite a different type of journey than you expected. My husband and I immediately flew to go get her and bring her home. What a relief it must be for her to find herself in a safe place. Please be patient with her. Her recovery will take time and will require therapy and a lot of support.